Good afternoon and welcome to ONNtv's candidates debate with regards to Ward 4 specifically this afternoon. And we are very pleased to have with us from the Sault Ste. Marie Association of Ratepayers, Lorna, Rudolph. And we are also very pleased to have Tim Murphy from ONNtv, who will be questioning our candidates. Now, just to give you a little idea of what the format is going to be like, each candidate is sitting in an order that the number was picked randomly in. So the question will be posed to each one. They'll have 90 seconds to respond. And if they have a rebuttal or a further thought, they're able to get back up again and talk for about 60 seconds. You'll hear a bell, and that has an indication that there are 20 seconds left to the person's time. And then if you hear a double bell, Angela, double bell, that indicates that their time is done. So thank you very much for tuning in. We are here to make sure that first you vote and then that you make a very informed vote. We've really enjoyed these ward debates because they've been very, very informative, and it's interesting to watch and to learn about the city that you're voting in, of course. So please pay attention, and thanks for tuning in. So let me introduce you to the Ward 4 candidates, starting with Sarah McCleary, then Tim Marsh, Marchie Bruni, and Rick Nero. And who's getting the first question today?
I don't know. Who wants to go first?
You can.
Me? Okay. First of all, Tim, thanks for lending me your mug. And now here we go, folks. Sackville Road. The second line Great Northern Road corridor is without a doubt one of the busiest highways in Ward 3, sort of Ward 4. Kind of bridges on you guys. I mean, you're on the edge of it, aren't you, Ward 4? You're Great Northern Road up to that corner. Anyway, it all affects us because it affects the entire city, really. Depending on the time of day, one may have to endure 3 to 5 sequences of the traffic signals before successfully executing a left turn at that intersection. And with the development of Ben Pino's new venture on Great Northern Road, there's concern that the congestion will only worsen. Ward 3 Councillor Huppanen, Judy, is on record in a Sault Star interview as saying traffic studies are underway and that she listens to the information presented to council by staff to make informed decisions and then debate the issues at council. Her ward mate, Councillor Shoemaker, in the same article said the situation has been studied repeatedly and the recommendation remains to extend Sackville Road. Now we have 2 incumbents sitting here, so they would know where we are on that issue as far as City Council goes presently. But I want to know, if you had to debate the issue at council, where would you stand? Are you supportive of moving forward with what Councillor Shoemaker indicates is the current recommendation from city staff to extend Sackville Road? And if so, why? And if you're not supportive of the recommendation, what's your reasoning and what alternative solutions do you have to offer?
And Sarah, you are the first to respond.
So you really do write books for your questions.
I do. I'm verbose.
That's fine. So my stance on that, I've actually spoken with some environmental groups, and apparently there are actually some flora there that are actually endangered. They're at-risk species of trees there. Oh. And additionally, we already have one of the, highest rates of roadway to, population, per capita within Ontario. I think we're the second highest. So honestly, I think that in terms of the number of roads to the number of cars, I don't think it justifies lengthening another street. What we need to focus on is trying to get more cars off the road. So what we need to do is really emphasize, cycling and bus routes and walking and making the city really more accessible for those kinds of transportation. There are so many reasons to get cars off the road environmentally and economically, and I don't think that extending a road is the right way to go about that. Definitely we need to focus on public transportation. So we know that, the bus service in town has been kind of struggling lately. It's been pretty common knowledge. If we invest in the bus service and get more people taking the buses, and then they're not driving as much. Same with cycling. So if we invest in trails and making the streets a little bit safer for cyclists, then those are fewer cars on the road there. So I think that that's what City Council really needs to focus on rather than adding to the roads and adding to the cost of road maintenance and everything else related.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Tim Marsh, you're next, sir.
So to more or less echo what Sarah said, I completely agree. I don't think we need to be extending Sackville at all. The fact is, she's right. There are already too many cars. I drive a car because it wasn't feasible for me to continue catching a bus anymore. Just adding more roads, more traffic, it's not working for us anymore. And the fact is, we already spend so much on road work as is, and we're already having trouble maintaining that. I don't see adding another road is the solution to our problems. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Margie, what do you think?
Thank you. This did come before council at our last budget, and it was withdrawn. The cost was well over $5 million, and so it was withdrawn. The study has taken place. Engineering does recommend a road to go through there. What I would like to see is more consultation with the area residents on Sackville Road, because they are going to be affected. So if that can be done, I think maybe, hopefully, all parties can agree. We do have a traffic jam on Second Line and Great Northern Road. I came up that route to come here, and it took me 25 minutes from my house. So we need to do something, and as Tim did mention, Mr. Pino wants to build a grocery store there. There's going to be another set of lights there. I think it'll be a total nightmare. So we need another passway through to Third Line East. Thanks.
Thank you, Margie. And Rick.
Thank you. First, let me say that the comments that Sarah brought up about trying to decrease the number of vehicles that we have in the city, I would agree with. The fact that Sackville was already recommended by our staff, and that that's the solution that they saw, was driven by the fact that any other solutions that we looked at the intersections of Great Northern Road and Second Line were very, very expensive, because there's no land that we can access there that we could put in additional lanes, turning lanes, and things of that nature. So, as Margie said, the only reason that it did get deferred was of our financial situation at the time that we discussed it in council. So my position would be, if our staff comes back with some alternatives, they would have to be weighed with the possible extension of Sackville onto Industrial Court. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody need a rebuttal? Terrific. Thank
I
you.
just say thank you. I heard really interesting
Yes.
things that I had not heard. I heard numbers that I'd never heard before, so that was really informative. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
And now, Lorna, you have the next question. Tim, you're up first.
Would you support an independent, comprehensive line-by-line audit of the city's financial records each 4 years as a new council is elected, so that at the start of each council's term, both the citizens of this community and the elected persons will know to the penny the city's financial position? In this question, I'm not talking about reviewing the city budget. I'm talking a line-by-line review of expenditures. Were the estimates correct? Did we get value for our dollar? I want to assure you, I'm not talking about malfeasance, misfeasance, corruption, or anything else. I'm just talking about discovering savings and efficiencies that will permit the city to provide better or more services without tax increases to the citizens.
Thank you for being so clear. No, the simple answer is yes. I completely support it. The fact is, by getting an independent, so outside of the people already doing it, is beneficial. Always having an extra set of eyes is beneficial when you're doing anything. They'll always see something that you might not have seen. And if there's things we can save money on, then we should just do it. Thanks.
Thank you. Margie, what do you think?
Thank you for the question. I do also agree that we should have an independent auditor. Fortunately, Councillor Nero and myself, we do sit on the Finance Committee. We do get audited several times a year, but I would like to see a comprehensive audit done probably the first year of the new council's term. This way they can bring the information back to us. Maybe there are some cost savings and all. Also, I want to let you know that councillors are very fortunate that we receive our budget approximately 2 months before it's made public. I go through it line for line. I spend many hours on our budget. I question staff. They return with their answers. If it's a good answer, let's proceed forward. If it's a bad answer, you like to grill them even more. So I think we're very fortunate that we do get the budget, but to have an independent auditor come in, I would say probably the first year of the new council's term. I wouldn't want to do it every year. I think the cost would be too expensive, but I think once every 4 years, I think is the correct thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Marchie. Mr. Nero.
So let me start by saying I'm not opposed to having somebody do a line-by-line audit of our budget. But we need to understand what this third party is looking for. To look at our budget line by line tells you the amount of dollars we spent on a certain line item. It doesn't tell you about efficiencies in that line item. Those are things that you have to go out and search with staff, have staff look at their operations and come back with that. For someone to look at our budget and you look line by line, you're going to be able to tell how much money we spend in each department and some sub-departments. As Marchie said, you know, we're audited. Our financial statements are audited every year. At the end of December, probably by May, we get a report from our auditors. But more importantly, they're also looked at by Standard & Poor's every year to do our credit rating. And I brought that because I wanted to quote it because I wanted to make sure I had it right. When Standard & Poor's looked at a snapshot of our budgets and our financial situation, financial management was satisfactory, budgetary flexibility was strong, budgetary performance was strong, liquidity was exceptional, debt burden was very low, and contingent liabilities low. That's a very good report as far as budgets are concerned.
Thanks, Rick. Does anyone have a rebuttal?
Oh, Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah.
My turn. So essentially, I agree that we do need to have an independent look at things. But I also think that we do need to take into consideration what the cost would be if we were thinking about doing it regularly. So I think that if we did it once, we would need to see, were the savings that it found worth the cost that we spent on it? Because like Rick said, our credit rating is really good. So I think that in terms of savings, I don't know how much there is there. I'm sure there's some that we could find, but that is also council's job. So I think that if we feel council isn't doing a good job in 4 years, then if this first audit, if we do one, then in 4 years, if we found that one was worth the money, then we should take a look at that council should maybe take a look at doing it again. But if it wasn't worth the money, then I think we should just leave it as council's job. But I think that openness and transparency is important. So I think that it is important to consult, the public and make those reports available to the public for sure.
Thanks, Sarah. And now I'll call for any rebuttals. Rick?
So if I could add, during last budget talks, I think it was Councillor Shoemaker and myself had asked that staff bring back mandatory and non-discretionary items so that we could look at those things. And that goes into a line-by-line look at our budget. But the problem with that is when you look at line by lines and you look at what's important to the city and it's not important to the city, everybody you talk to will have a different idea that they will give you and what's important to them. What does a core service mean to you, to Tim, and to you? They're going to be different because what you expect from a service from the city is different to everybody you speak to. So a line by line is not going to solve the problem in itself.
Thank you, Rick. Interesting information from all of you. Appreciate that. Now the next question from
me.
You.
This Tim wants to know from that Tim, who's first on this one?
Marchie's
Marchie. Hi, Marchie. Okay, so about transit, because we were just discussing roads and now transit. It's a nice segue. Expanding neighborhoods, the relocation of healthcare and educational institutions, and developing commercial businesses can result in urban sprawl. Ward 4 is one of the wards that has seen substantial growth within its parameters, but much of that growth has occurred without the addition of additional public transit routes to counter the development. When you factor in concerns like accessibility, health equity considerations for seniors, youth, and lower income citizens, promoting environmental issues and environmental health and community wellness, while addressing the community's need to still get from A to B in all 4 seasons, and then you throw in fiscal responsibility, well, public transit becomes one of the most complex, I think, facing city staff. What have you heard from Ward 4 residents about transit concerns, and as a councillor, how would you address those issues?
Thank you for the long-winded question, Tim.
You can always count on me, Margie.
No problem. We did have a transit study. It was implemented. We as councillors have received phone calls regarding the schedule of the transit. The transit system has been working with staff to see if they can change some of the routes, but they're doing a 6-month test right now, a review, and then they're going to do a 12-month review. So hopefully the schedules will alter a little bit. I do recall when they eliminated Sunday evening busing, I was a very strong opponent against it. I wanted Sunday busing to continue. And the people were very, very concerned, and they complained quite a bit that they wanted the Sunday evening busing. And it did come back, and it came back through the study. I think also our buses have to be equipped for the handicap. I think it's very, very important. I think we're looking at buses now that you can put your bicycles on the front of the bus, which is important, so people can ride their bike, take a bus. I think our bus fares should be maybe reduced a bit, and I will rebuttal on that with more information.
You've already signed up for an extra minute.
Thank you very much, Margie. Rick, what's your call on this?
So, obviously everybody knows that we just have finished the study, we put our new routes into place, and it's caused some problems. But what happens, and I'm going to give you an example of how this works and how it's a very difficult thing to solve for our staff in any transit. You're familiar in Ward 4 with Kitchener Road and Grand Boulevard. They're a block away. Our bus ran on Kitchener Road before. Through the study that the consultant did, used the standard of 450 meters or 5-minute walk to any bus stop. That's where we should be. So that criteria took the bus from Kitchener Road and put it onto Grand Boulevard. What do you think happened? The people that were used to having the bus on Kitchener certainly complained that they wanted that service back. But a lot of the people that were walking that lived on Grand Boulevard were walking to the Kitchener Road location. So when you use the criteria, you can't satisfy everyone. But you get the best bang for the dollar, because all the changes we made were within the same budget that we had for transit. Also, accessibility. We have the Accessibility Advisory Committee that advises transit on all transit matters, whatever they may be. We're looking at something very recently, an Uber-style call out for bus service, which would tie into the regular route.
Thank you very much, Rick. Sarah?
So as a reporter here in town, as soon as the recent changes were made to the bus services, even before I put my name forward for council, I had people contacting me, students and seniors saying, the services aren't working anymore. Can you please write about this? What can we do? Can you help us? And so I've been a proponent of adjusting the bus services for sure. I mean, I know that they're in the testing period, if you will. But many international studies have shown that the more you invest in your bus services, the greater your return on investment is. So I know that we don't really have a whole lot of money to be playing with in the city in terms of transit service, but the more we invest, the more we'll get back, the more people will be riding it. And Kingston, actually, I lived in Kingston for a year when I did my master's degree, and I took the bus there everywhere. It was an amazing service. You know, you didn't have to wait at transfer points. It was, you got off, you got back on the next bus, and it was amazing. And Kingston's been held up within Canada as a prime example of how to revitalize your bus service, because apparently it used to have a really bad, you know, people were complaining about it. It was a terrible service. And then in about 2010 or 11, they updated it. And so now it's been used by cities across Canada as a model for how to revitalize their own service. So what I would love to see is here in the Soo, we sit down with the Kingston, you know, municipality, find out what we can do here to turn things around. Rather than just a generic study, we need to talk to somebody who's done it right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Tim.
Tim?
Oh, sorry. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, you're right. The city's growing. I know for a fact because 2 years ago I bought a house on People's Road, and beside me was a field. Every day I'd see deer. Now it's a whole new subdivision. The field is gone. And the fact is the bus routes, luckily for us, they're making an effort. They're not going to fix the problem. We can't be making changes every week. So we do have to do those testing periods. It's good to hear that they have a 6-month and a 12-month process in place, and it's good. The fact is I've essentially grown up on People's Road. I lived on Talek, and I would catch the bus to work. My first job was at Rianiti as a banquet server. In order for me to get to work, even though it's only a 5-minute drive from where my house was, I had to catch the bus for an hour and 20 minutes all the way around. Thankfully, with the new changes, there is now a bus that goes up and down People's Road. It used to just go all the way around once, and it was hell. But the changes are there. We just need the people, we need the input of everybody in the city, and it's good to hear that we're getting it. But we need to be patient, and Sarah's right. Getting input from other cities that are doing it well, doing it right, will definitely benefit us in making improvements on our own. The fact is that we are making changes, and we're going to continue making changes to make that, it is a core service for this thing, especially with 50% of our city being elderly. It's a core service, and we'll continue to improve it.
Thank you very much. March, you had rebuttal. And then Rick, your turn?
Thank you. I just want to explain a little bit more regarding the transit. Transit is a lost revenue for the city. So we have to be mindful on the spending. We're trying to purchase a new bus every year. We're going with the smaller buses, especially for the routes that don't pick up many people. But we have packages out there for seniors. You buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack, they come out to $1.50 a ride. What I'd like to see is, for instance, Community Day, free bus service for people to get down to Queen Street area and the surrounding area to enjoy the festivities. Also, for voting, if you show your voter's card, you can get on the bus for free and go and vote. So I would like to see a few more of those initiatives. When Queen Street blocks off their streets, maybe have free bus service for people to get to the activity. So I would like to introduce that, if elected, in our next council term. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Rick?
So a couple of things. I certainly would support free bus service for seniors and things like that. But those are things that come out of a good transit system in the first place. And I want to speak to the part about, you know, what are they doing in Kitchener and what are they doing in Kingston, and why don't we just do what they're doing if it works well? And I get that. That's why we get consultants. We don't use consultants all the time, but when we need their professionalism in that issue, we get a consultant. And the consultants that we hire, it's not their first rodeo. They have done transit studies in other municipalities and have fixed them, and we expect that they bring those things back to our community. That's why we would use a consultant, and that's what they look at, other communities.
So I just
Sarah
want to comment on 2 points there. So I know that Margie said that the transit is, you know, lost money for the Soo, but it's not in every city. The fact is that it doesn't have to be. So I would love to see it invested in so that we do get that return on investment. And as far as, the consultants, I absolutely understand, sometimes you need to bring in a consultant with the expertise, but if we have the opportunity to speak for free or for nothing more than the cost of a plane ticket to Kitchener or to Kingston, I think that that's a far better route to take than hiring a consultant. And like I said, they've been consulted like the Kingston municipality has been consulted and has successfully helped turn around other cities' transit. So I think that it's a route that we should definitely consider.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Further rebuttal? And our next question, we'll start with you, Rick, from Lorna.
This relates to the emergency services for police, fire, and EMS. Do you consider that there are sufficient persons available to perform these services in these services? Or are we trying to make do with the people we have to the possible detriment of our emergency service employees? In other words, do we need more?
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak specifically to fire because during that whole realignment, I did declare conflicts because my brother works for the fire department. And I need to have that conflict continuing. I'm still a counselor. I'm a candidate, but I'm still a counselor. Do we have enough? That's what we're working on. The realignment happened because they were trying to balance EMS services with fire. We're still looking at that. There's still talks going on between fire department, EMS, our fire chief, and our CAO. So do we have enough? I can't answer that. That has to come back. Certainly of what's happened, I think that the numbers that we went to were too low, but did we have too many to start off with? I think, logically, I think we're going to end up somewhere in the middle. Someone's going to come to an agreement that that's the number that we should have. I'm not sure that we're at the total number of EMS right now. I know that we approved bringing that number up to where it should be, but I just can't confirm if we have every person hired in that service.
Thank you, Rick. Sarah, what's your take on this?
So I absolutely feel that we do need to find some efficiencies when it comes to services and spending in the SOO. I don't think that emergency services is where that should come from. When I'm thinking, in terms of if my house catches fire, I want to make sure that there are enough, firefighters on staff and available who aren't exhausted from having had to work overtime yesterday, available. So absolutely, I think that we need to listen to the requests that are being made in terms of staffing levels, because those are the experts. They know, the demands and the requirements within their field. So the firefighters, for example, I know spent, I think it's $900,000 so far this year, $700,000 so far this year in overtime pay because they don't have enough people on staff regularly. Whereas just hiring 2 more people full time would resolve that. So there are both economic benefits to getting more EMS staff, EMS firefighters, emergency staff, as well as safety. I don't think safety is a matter that should be taken lightly, the safety of the citizens of the SOO. I think it should be the prime concern for the city, and it's definitely worth the investment.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim Marsh.
So in the first mayoral debate, our current mayor stated that our current emergency services are not overstaffed. And he's right, we're not overstaffed. I'm pretty sure we're pretty close to being understaffed, but we're not overstaffed. The fact is, in order to get them, we need to support them. And in order to do that, it doesn't just mean giving them more money. It means we have a lot of issues right now. We have the break-in and entries. We have the opioid crisis. All those things put a strain on all of our emergency services. The fact is, we need to increase the frontline services to support those larger services such as police, fire, EMS, so that they can do other things and help other citizens, not just be focusing on the overdose issue or the constant break-in entries. Thanks.
Thank you. Marchie.
Thank you. Just to start off with, I'll speak of the fire services. I was one of the councillors that requested a comprehensive risk assessment to be done before anything occurred with fire services. They reduced the staff from 17 down to 13. For a truck to attend a fire, you need 4 firefighters to attend the fire. You can't go there with 3. So what they tried to do is they tried to reduce fire services to put more money into the EMS. EMS is short-staffed right now. They're working a lot of overtime, and we need to complement them. We need to provide them with more bodies to handle. We are an aging city, and the ambulances, their calls are drastically increasing on a daily basis. So I believe that we should be reviewing it. We should try to complement EMS for sure. Fire services now, the complement is at 15. The risk assessment, comprehensive risk assessment, came in after, and that's what their thoughts were. Increase it to 15. So we're at 15 firefighters per shift, but EMS right now is short-staffed, lots of overtime, and there's a lot of stress in that department. So I hope we can find more money and put it towards the EMS side.
Good information. Thank you so much, all of you. Any rebuttals? And I believe it's your turn, Mr. Murphy.
It is.
And we're starting with Sarah.
Yes, we are, and that's appropriate because I have a quote from you. In your news release announcing your bid for a council seat, you're quoted as saying, "I think when you get older people on council, particularly when they haven't had to job hunt in 30 or more years, their mortgages are paid off, and their children are all grown, they don't really understand what life is like for the city's young people. There's no doubt in my mind that that's a contributing factor to our out-migration issue." Okay, so I think we know what we need. We've heard it time and again. We need more jobs, local post-secondary education and skills training aligned with the Algoma District's current employment vacancies. We need a better quality of life for the youth demographic. But as a voter in your ward, I want to hear about ideas for solutions for our youth out-migration problem, not just another grocery list of what we lack. We know we need, the issues have been identified. So if you want to address Sarah's comment, feel free, but I just brought that up because I thought it was interesting. But what I really want to know, guys, is do you have any ideas that you can bring to the table that will actually affect change and help counter the Sault Ste. Marie's youth retention dilemma?
So thank you for pulling probably my most controversial statement ever.
On TV. Yeah.
Good to go. So basically, yeah, what I'm saying by that, I'm not, I know there was some controversy with it, but I'm not saying that, older people don't understand any, they aren't facing the same issues that young people are facing today. And so I'm about to say a bad word. I'm a millennial. I admitted it. Okay, so I'm a millennial. I understand the issues facing the youth of today. I understand the issue of finding a home and finding your first job after university, even though they promised you in high school, if you go to university, you'll get a good job. They don't tell you, no, you're going to spend 6 years in fast food first. Which is almost exactly what happened to me. So I've experienced these issues. I have ideas for how they can be fixed. So a lot of the issue for the youth here, the people that I know that have left, and the issues that I thought about when I considered leaving, because I'm not going to pretend that it didn't cross my mind to move to Toronto. Some of the things that we can address are issues like transit, because a lot of young people, we can't afford vehicles, or if we can afford vehicles, they're not in great shape. So fixing transit, getting a youth center set up, maybe the millennials that are leaving, they're above that, like beyond that in terms of age, but it shows that we do care about our young people here if we get that set up, because there have been calls for it for ages. Focusing more on environmentalism, because millennials do care about environmentalism, and I'll stop there, but I do have more thoughts.
Okay. Okay, terrific. Tim Marsh.
So just to be clear, I love old people. But
as your moderators, we say thank you.
You're welcome. You warning.
You almost got sprayed with
Perfect. Now half my time's gone. But no, the issue exists. I know for a fact because I'm married, and although I love this city, I've never considered leaving. My wife has. It's hard. It's a constant debate. She gets frustrated. In order for us to even live, because of the decisions to reduce daycare back in the day, the only way we could financially support us, we actually created a daycare in my basement. The basement was supposed to be mine, but now it's a daycare. And it's great. It's been working great. But my wife still, to this day, just 2 days ago, said, you know, there's always the option of moving. You know, maybe more opportunities for our kids. It's hard. The fact is, there's a lot of things we're supporting, and there's a lot of things we're not always supporting. The constant conversation is always about the steel plant. It's not just in the steel industry that we need to be supporting. I honestly think, and I think you relate to this, Tim, it's in the arts and culture. I think things like Bonsu, WTF Festival, more things like that will 100% improve our city. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Thanks, Tim. Marchie Bruni.
Thank you. I guess when I read the quote, I looked at my wife and said, am I old?
And she said, oh, no.
No, of course not. I understand about youth migration because my son works out of town. My daughter moved out of town and is working in Toronto. I understand that. And it does hurt me. It does bother me when I see the youth leave our city. What do we have to do? Well, I think we got to work at the secondary level. We got guidance counselors. They should be directing these students what fields are in demand right now. We're short of tradespeople. SR Steel has to hire people from out of town to come in town when they have their down days. We need the Sioux College, Algoma University, Lake State. We need them working together, bring in programs that are going to keep our kids here in the Sioux, and then they can find jobs in the Sioux. Tradesmen or tradespeople is a big demand right now in all fields. So I'm hoping that we can do that. Just to give you an example, also co-op students. I had a co-op student from Algoma University. They came, they repaired my computer. They're getting experience and they're getting their schooling. That's fantastic, and hopefully he can find a full-time job in the computer field for himself. So I do understand youth migration.
Thank you, Marchie. Rick Nero, what are your thoughts?
Let's get rid of the elephant in the room. Yeah, I'm one of those older people that you're talking about. So, you know what? The short answer is economic diversification. You prefaced your question with all the things that everybody, all the buzzwords, those issues that we should be doing, and we are doing. But recently, council, in a move that I supported, put a community plan in place called Future Sault Ste. Marie. And that is going to go miles in addressing this. We have young professionals working on Future Sault Ste. Marie. And people may say, this fits into the same category as what you mentioned in your prefacing your question. We've talked about this before. We've talked about Destiny Sault Ste. Marie. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the Rapids plan. They were all there. The only difference with this one is, with Future Sault Ste. Marie, is we put money behind it. We reallocated funds from the Economic Development Corporation, and we gave it to Future Sault Ste. Marie, $444,650 some a year. That's not new money. It didn't affect our budget because we were paying it to Economic Development Corporation. We reallocated. We leveraged from FedNor $1.3 million and leveraged another 1.2 or 1.4 million from NOHFC. We have a total of $4 million to spend in solving that problem. That's what I supported.
Thank you. Sarah, you had more thoughts. Perhaps another quote?
I kind of hope not. So I just want to say, first of all, it wasn't meant as a jab at anybody, I promise. It was just kind of a general statement that I do think we need the young lived experience on council to get out there and help make those decisions. I do really support the Future Sault Ste. Marie project. I think that it will, and having young people working on that, as people my age, I think, that are in charge of putting it or implementing it, I think is really great. I think my thing is, so this summer I was actually presented with a fantastic opportunity to move to Toronto before I filed my papers for council. And so I literally sat down and I wrote a pros and cons list for the Soo and for Toronto. And the pros list for Toronto was so much bigger. But I decided, I'm not running away from this. I'm staying in the Soo, and I'm going to try to help turn this around so that next time somebody makes one of these lists, the Soo's list is bigger. So that's really, what I'm bringing to the table is I'm going to be focusing on 20 years down the road.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other rebuttals, further thoughts? Marchie and then Rick.
I just want to expand also, we have to work with EDC, the Innovation Center. EDC right now has a young entrepreneurship program. It goes into our high schools. On average, we've been averaging about 15 to 20 students starting businesses. It's funded by the government. So we have to continue pursuing that avenue. I think it's very, very important that we follow the future of Sault Ste. Marie, what Councillor Nero mentioned. We have invested money in it. We have to make sure that it is successful. We have over 5,000 people in that group. We have a lot of young people in that group, and hopefully we continue with it. We have 3 years, and hopefully we're going to get some positive results from it. Thanks.
Rick? And then Tim, I think, is next.
Well, thank you. And just on the, I stopped at the 3-year thing. Yeah, we have financing for 3 years. We have the $4 million that I mentioned. What's missing out of that was $200,000 of in-kind services from the people that are helping that project. But I've been asked, what happens at the end of year 3? How are we going to finance that if we spend $4 million in 3 years? How are we going to go forward with that? Well, council's commitment of the $444,000 and change will remain because that is already in the budget. We've been spending it for years and it's just going to continue. But we need to see what comes out after the 3 years, what comes out of this Future Sault Ste. Marie and the recommendations. And no, we won't have the NOHFC, but we won't have FedNor, but we will have solutions and we'll have to make decisions at that time how to supplement the money that's already there from City Council.
Thank you, Rick. And Tim?
I would like you can bring up the same point as Marchie. The EDC is a fantastic opportunity for a lot of young people. The small business program for students is fantastic. I know it was because I was one of them. I had a small business called Crew Cuts. It was an environmentally friendly lawn care business. We did a all right job, but we were young.
What a winning endorsement.
But to be fair, we were mostly known for all our slogans. We're not just cutting lawns, we're cutting pollution. But we worked hard for it, and it was a valuable lesson. But the fact is, there's not a lot of jobs in the city. I really hope that the co-op student that Marchie has in the technology industry is going to be able to find work here, because I have friends in the technology industry and they live in California, in Ottawa. I have a friend who lives in Ukraine because he found better work there than here. It's a hard city to get a job in, and I'm lucky I'm in the hospitality industry because we got a lot of restaurants. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Tim, we're going to start the next question with you, and it's from Lorna.
The changes to the Municipal Act require municipalities to fill positions for a municipal ombudsman, a lobby registrar, an integrity commissioner, and an auditor general. What steps will you take to promote open public scrutiny of the appointment of these officers and review of their appointment by each newly elected council?
You know if I turn right? So the great news is, like, as far as I know, these are legally mandated. Those positions we need to have. And as far as being accountable and transparent with everything, for me it's easy. I can't even lie to my wife, so I don't see me lying to anybody else. It's very difficult for me to do, especially if you ask me right to my face. But the fact is, I know council is getting better at it, and we still have a long way to go before we are perfect, before they are perfect. I'm not part of it at this point in time, but we're looking to make the changes. We're working on it. And I know in one of the most recent debates, it was brought up that some people can't even view certain committees and council meetings and whatnot. But the fact is we need to make it the ability to for people who are interested in the city and what's going on and want to be informed, we need to be able to give them the ability to be informed and not keep them in the dark. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. And Marchie Bruni.
Thank you. I do support. I think it's we have to be as transparent as possible. As Mr. Tim mentioned, it is in the Municipal Act that you have to have the Integrity Commissioner. I believe our meetings are open. Our closed sessions are recorded because of personnel matters or land transfers or purchases of land. So that's in caucus, but it is recorded. But I do believe the Agenda Review Committee should be a little bit more lenient. When people want to come to council and do a presentation, it should be an open door policy that they should have it. We have a procedure in place. If you come, I believe it's seven working days prior, they'll put it on the agenda. I think councillors, we used to have 2 councillors on the review agenda committee, and they would we would all take turns, Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but that was eliminated. So right now we just have the CAO, the mayor, and the deputy CAO on the review committee. So I would like to see it a little bit more open, a little more transparent, and this way the public will know. I like to see all voting recorded so people have access to the recording of the votes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick Nero.
So I believe that this council has come a long way in transparency in the last term, the last 2 terms, I would say. To the question of the Integrity Commissioner, the Ombudsman, all of those things that are coming down the pipe, the Integrity Commissioner is already in place. We came to open council, we did an RFP, the committee selected the person, the winning proposal, and as a matter of fact, the Integrity Commissioner has already dealt with 1 issue, I believe, that was reported back to council. Those things all happen in open council, so the report came back. Open meetings, all meetings or committees of council are open. Someone may, and I've heard this, that some certain committees are still not open, but those aren't committees of council. We can only regulate our committees. Our committees are all open to the media, to anybody who wants to sit in on them. As far as being open to the public, as how do we bring that council meeting forward? I guess because of my age, I remember on council, we had an open 10-minute session before every council meeting. If anybody wanted to get on the agenda, or they could come up. But I can't really recall if they were put on the agenda, or at least we knew they were going to speak. They were in the audience. They could come up, ask questions of council, get clarifications. And we had that 10 minutes before we started our regular agenda. So I think we've gone a long way in transparency.
Thank you very much. Sarah.
I feel like now everything's going to come back to age because my suggestion is going to be technology. So basically, in terms of transparency, I think the easiest way is to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on. So making sure that that information is all easily accessible, because I think that's the issue right now, is that yes, the information's out there, but you kind of have to go here on the website and then over here and then follow this link and then that one. So if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to find that information. So I think setting up a website within, the city's website, a page that has all of this information easily accessible, whether it's reports, all of the RFP responses, all of the tenders that the city receives, if it's links to videos for recorded sessions, these are the times that these committees meet. I think that's really the best solution. Because I know, the other alternative is sending it all out in the media and everything, and that's just more work than we want to put on city staff. So I think that just kind of amalgamating it all, making sure all the information is available and accessible, and that people know where they can find it if they're inclined to.
Thank you very much. Rick, we'll let you rebut first, and then Marchie, you're next.
Not a rebuttal as much as just some added information. The recorded vote is coming. I think December or something. That is coming, the recorded votes. As far as putting everything on the website, the comments that Sarah just made, I agree 100%. Our problem is, and it's been identified and it's been acknowledged by our staff, that our IT department is a little lacking right now. So we need to spend funds to bring that IT department up so we can do these things that we're talking about. It's not that we don't want to do them. We don't have the capabilities right now to do some things that we should be doing. Even in our budgets, when we ask discretionary, non-discretionary, it's easy for some departments to pull those lists out very easily, and some departments it's all manual. So we need to spend some money on our IT department so we can do those things, all those good things that everybody wants to see.
Marchie.
Just a comment on Sarah's, you're correct about our IT. It is under study right now. They are reviewing everything in the IT department. But I just want to talk about future Sault Ste. Marie. And I've received some complaints that all the committees on the Sault Ste. Marie, future Sault Ste. Marie, the committees are not open for the public. And people want access. And I think we should be advertising, we should be putting it on our website when all these committees are meeting. So if people want to go in and just listen, they don't have to speak, but they want to listen, we should have an open door policy for them. And that's one of the concerns. I did bring it up to council, but they said it wasn't required, but I believe it is required. It is taxpayers' money, $444,000, as Councillor Nero mentioned, and the people should have access to get in there and to listen to the meeting and see what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you. Last call for rebuttal. And speaking of last, it looks like this will be our last question.
Oh.
Especially because it's from Tim.
No, this one's short.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
All right. So, Marchie Bruni, we're going to start with you.
Being as centralized and enviably, this is by the way from a constituent, being as centralized and enviably positioned as possible, have you given any thought to how we might monetize Sault Ste. Marie's advantageous geographical position in the blossoming cannabis industry? October 17th, it becomes legal. Just wondering whether you've given any thought to that as a viable, talk about economic development and diversification. What do you think, Marchie?
Well, I did think about it. After last night's flooding, yeah. Yeah, you're correct, Tim. October 17th, it is the date. I believe cities should have some control on where these outlets are going to be placed. I personally don't want to see these outlets on Queen Street. We're trying to revitalize Queen Street. I would like to see maybe, I don't know where they should go right now, but I think city staff is going to come back to us with a report on recommendations of where a location or locations can be. Obviously, they can't be around schools, churches, daycare centers, etc. So I think it will be a task for the city, but it's something that's going to be implemented. I think we have to go with it and hopefully go from there.
Thank you, Marchie. Rick.
So, absolutely, when we get there. But it seems that everyone realizes how this whole thing was put together. And it's kind of every day, it's kind of, let's see where we're going today and how are we going to sell it, how are we going to market it. But should we market it? Once everything settles out and it's marketable, then we should. We should do economic diversity. I mentioned that before. Mm-hmm. We're going through rebranding right now. We've going to look at our branding, and we're going to look at all our letterheads and what is Sault Ste. Marie? What is the quality of life? What do we stand for? We have a number of things out there. So once we get that settled, then we can go out there and market ourselves properly, and we can pick the issues that we want to market.
Thank you. Sarah.
So I think that we're all pretty aware now that the provincial government has decided that the cannabis sales in Ontario are going to be privatized. My understanding is that municipalities have until mid-January to opt out of that and keep it within provincial control within the city. And that's what I would like to see done, just because it would give us an opportunity to kind of step back and see how it's working for other cities who haven't done that, who haven't opted out. And then we can see what's working for them and what's not before we just kind of jump right in and, you know, have a party with it. I don't think that we should, jump into things too quickly when it comes to that. It's really new, obviously, to Canada. So I think we should take our time and, see what happens and go from there. I don't think that we need to rush into anything.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim.
So, to dispel popular belief whenever I meet people, I don't smoke drugs or anything. I only drink. And the reason. So here's the thing.
I only drink.
I don't. It's the truth. The fact is, I've had a bit of a controversial opinion on it for years. I hate the thought of it. I can't even stand the smell. I'm against it completely for myself personally. I have always been for the legalization of marijuana because especially whether we privatize or not, doesn't matter. I would love to see it stayed by the city because I think the taxes for that would be a huge benefit for the city itself. If it is privatized, I don't think it should be, oh, we can't have it on this street, we can't have it on this street. The fact is, if it's privatized, it's a business. We need to be able to let them go where the people are that they're going to be serving. That's where a business wants to be, where the people are. And if they're the main people who are going to be using that business is on Queen Street, we should be letting them on Queen Street. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Rebuttals?
No rebuttals?
You know, and you drink, that's fine. You could be on the Supreme Court.
You like beer.
Yeah, I like beer. Yeah. How are we for time?
We're good. We're wrapping up.
You are,
Yeah,
eh?
we are.
This
Thank
was
you so
great,
much.
guys.
Yes,
Did you
it was
enjoy
so
yourselves?
informative.
Absolutely.
Me too, thank you.
Yes,
Lorna, did you have a good time?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
really appreciate the information from Sarah McCleary, Tim Marsh, Margie Bruni, and Rick Nero, who are all candidates in Ward 4 in the upcoming municipal election.
That's our ward. We're a lucky ward.
Yeah, we are. And thank you huge to Sault Ste. Marie Association of Ratepayers, Lorna Rudolph, and to Tim Murphy, and to the crew, as always, here at ONNtv. And we really appreciate that you are tuning in. It's important for us to give you some local information on a daily basis, especially when it pertains to municipal elections, because obviously your vote counts. It's very important to be informed. So we have Ward 5, our final ward, tomorrow, starting again live at 12 noon. So hopefully we'll see you then. In the meantime, have a great day and thanks for joining us.